I've already rambled off, so let me get back into this. First of all, I'm going to introduce our leadership. And the fire trucks going off might be appropriate. Because these two started a fire alarm months ago. Darcy and Stacy are down underneath the tent. Big round of applause for them. These two ladies went to a rally this summer in Kansas City, similar to this, and about 20 people showed up. And they looked at each other and thought, we can do better than that. And so here we are with an organization they started in July of 2024. We've had as few as 20 people, and we've had as many as 300 people at our rallies. I anticipate we'll see that higher number as the day rolls out. I joined the group in October of 2024. My name is Lucinda Evans. I retired as an educator at Topeka High School. Not surprisingly, my background is history and government. So if you've been following any of the legislative action that has been put out on social media, that's me. The letters, the phone calls, the recommendations, the call to action, those come from me. But you aren't here to listen to me. There's just a few things that I need to share with you. Number one, under the tent down there are snacks, bottled water, chucks and pearls. If you don't know what chucks and pearls are, that is one of the symbols of our organization. We're going to keep marching until the world rights itself, and the pearls represent resilience. They don't break. So we have chucks and pearls. We've got our business cards down there. We've sent postcards all over the country and to many of the legislators here. As a matter of fact, every legislator who comes to this building during the legislative session got not one but two postcard invites from Darcy to be here. So I wish there were 140 chairs up here, 145 chairs up here. There's not. So the weather is going to cooperate with us. If you need restroom facilities, they are on the north side of the Capitol. You have to go into the visitor center, but you're welcome to go in there if you need to use the restroom. I will also say this. There is an Easter egg hunt scheduled from 1 to 3 on the north side of the Capitol by some local churches. So we will have company on the Capitol grounds. So if you are someone who is interested in marching, we would ask that you wait until the end of the rally, and we will gladly join you with our signage and walk around the Capitol with you. But we're going to let the Easter egg hunt roll out for the children over there on the north side. And finally, if there's anything you need, it is at the information table. Darcy is a master organizer. She has portable charging stations, portable charging cords if you need them. I don't know, tape, whatever you might need. It's at that table. There's a first aid kit there if you get a splitter, and if this happens to blow away on us. That being said, I'm going to stop and introduce our MC for today. A name that's well known in the city of Topeka, a name that we all love but struggle to spell. And that is Tobias Niegelsiepen, member of the Kansas State House of Representatives, and he will be introducing our speakers today. So, a big, huge round of applause for Tobias.
So I am going to introduce our first speaker today. I believe that's Chloe Chapin from Loud Light. Chloe is 22 years old and originally from Olathe. She graduated from Washburn University in May with a degree in political science and minors in English and poverty studies, and now lives in Lawrence. Last fall, she started her MPA program with concentrations in public policy and nonprofit management. She has been with Loud Light since the fall of 2020, and her current title is Fellowship Manager. Currently, she teaches 3 rotating fellowship programs for young and impacted folks to learn about the legislative session and community organization. Let's welcome Chloe to the microphone.
Hello, Kansas! As Tobias said, my name is Chloe Chapin. I'm the Fellowship Manager at Loud Light, and if you are unfamiliar, just to restate, Loud Light is a statewide, nonpartisan nonprofit focused on youth civic engagement and voting rights for marginalized communities. It is essential, now as it is ever, that young and impacted Kansans rise up, fight back, and make your voices heard. course of my work each year, on college campuses, at pride parades, at libraries and coffee shops, and I hear the same things again and again. I hear that folks are exhausted. I hear that people crave hope. And I hear that people too often feel alone in their values. Depending on where they come from, a lot of young people do not always see how many other Kansans have their back and feel the way that you and I do. When your government does not hesitate to bulldoze your rights, you feel like you are losing your mind all alone, thinking, how can this be? But to those folks, I tell you, you are not alone. We see you and we hear you and we recognize this moment for what it is. We are in a moment of global democratic backsliding, rising fascism, and unrest. A couple of decades ago, leaders spoke of the end of history because it was assumed that peace and truth would prevail and that thriving communities were inevitable in due time. That is not the case now. Now young people exist under a cloud of eco-anxiety and hearts broken by watching our government, under both parties, funding a genocide in Gaza. I hear folks start to wonder if the end of history means something entirely darker and different in this moment in 2025. But I tell you this, that story is not inevitable either. There are rules to the physics of power. It is always flowing and waiting for you to seize it. Power is not stagnant, not for a moment. It demands to be harnessed. If you are someone who is skeptical of the abuses of power by our government, then you might struggle against it. It gives me the ick to say, but we should all want power. We should want people's power, we should want popular consensus to prevail, and that means wrestling back power from corporate influences and the twisted media narratives that seek to divide us. But I also want to call us all in for a moment. I want to challenge you to reflect on where you are closest to power. Because I see a lot of righteous anger here in the crowd today against Donald Trump and Elon Musk. I feel it too. God, do I feel it too. But our strategy and power analysis falls far, far short if that is all we discuss. Your power is strongest in proximity. So while we can walk and chew gum and scream at the powers that be in Washington, D.C., I ask you to please turn more of that energy towards this building right behind me. One of the most powerful things that I think you can do in this moment, and also luckily one of the most accessible, is to make sure that your state legislators know you by name. The session is over for now, but for better or for worse, our rights are frozen. Our wins and losses from this year are locked in until 2026, and we can all take a collective deep breath. But if we wait to strategize until January, then the legislators that don't like to be responsive to their constituents will just hand-wave you away and say that they are too busy for accountability when the session resumes. I have seen it for 5 years now. Instead, let this be the start of your journey with Kansas Power. Let this be the time that you reach out and invite your legislator to a coffee or a phone call or a Zoom. There is no reason for them to brush you off now. Are they going to tell you that they don't have one single hour to spare in the next 12 months? No, we're not going to let them get away with that. If you look them in their eyes, if they hear your story repeated again and again across hundreds of constituents, you can bring them to understanding, or short of that, fear. The fear of losing their power. Every scary executive order and bill that we see at the national level was only made possible because too many folks ceded power at the state level first. The MAGA movement and their predecessors and collaborators and the Tea Party, Turning Point, ALEC, and other groups have been playing the long game for decades by chopping up state legislators with gerrymandering and copy and pasting bills and by mobilizing young people. Overturning Roe with Dobbs did not happen overnight. It came from a 50-year relentless campaign, even when everything seemed settled. Those activists, for better or for worse, never once gave up hope. They passed trigger bans all across the country and were eventually rewarded for it. The anecdote comes from the same venom as the hurt. Demographics are not destiny, and nothing is certain. Our folks need to take a lesson from these movements, match the energy, and lock in. I plead with you, pay attention here, in Topeka. If you worry about Trump and Elon, you should really be worried about Pat Proctor saying that he wants to eliminate early and mail-in voting, and the contempt with which he talks about women, young women casting legal votes as is their fundamental right to do. If you worry about Trump and Elon, you should worry about Patrick Schmidt encasing fetal personhood language into Kansas law because he wanted to play 4D chess with your rights and ignore the expertise of actual abortion providers and experts. You should be incensed when he still claims that he is the most pro-choice senator in Kansas, despite the blunder having never apologized. If you are heartened by the acts of protest and resistance in Congress, then be heartened by the acts of protest and resistance of the hundreds queer and trans kids. Those are your most immediate neighbors, and they showed their bravery time and time again in these halls, and they deserve their flowers just as much as anyone who gets an interview on CNN. There might have been a different path had another administration won, but even then, poverty would have persisted, hatred would have persisted, unrest and illness would have persisted. One administration does not start this, one administration does not end this. Ask yourself, would you have been just as mobilized in that timeline? I know I would have. But if the answer is no, then that's okay. I'm not here to judge. I know sometimes it takes a shock to the system to move, but each day is a new chance to do good and to do more. I want to work with you. It is my job to teach young people to make change, and it heartens me every single day to do this work. Loud Light is here to be a resource, here to give guidance and support, and to help you turn your energy into beautiful, transformative change. Together we can do so much more if we only know where to start. It is easy to laugh at the people who don't know any better than to think that the president controls gas and egg prices, like he has some magical dial built into the Resolute desk. But if we don't turn our attention to the state level until the bigotry has metastasized on C-SPAN, then we too are just burning ourselves out to no avail. I know it may sound like I'm asking a lot, but I wouldn't ask it if I didn't think that you were capable. Bother your legislators for the next 9 months. You are their constituent year-round. They do not get a summer vacation from accountability. I love you, Kansas. We can do this together. Thank you.
Yeah, just a reminder to everyone that we are not allowed to put stakes into the grounds here at the Capitol. So we're going to try to hold the tent in place. Our next speaker today is Maria Morrissey. She is the Director of Legislative Affairs and Organizing from Planned Parenthood in Great Plains Votes. She just moved here in December from New York, where she was counsel to the NYS Senate Majority for almost 5 years, and prior to that was policy counsel for a nonprofit called Hispanic Federation. So she has years of experience as a legislative attorney. And now she gets to use all of her expertise to work on issues in Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, where Planned Parenthood Great Plains provides care to the most vulnerable among us. Let's welcome Maria Morrissey.
Hello, everyone. Whoa, louder than I thought I was going to be. Woo! Guys, I'm real scared I'm going to lose my speech in the wind, so bear with me. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Maria. I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs and Organizing for Planned Parenthood Great Plains, aka PPGP. I am so proud to be standing here today with so many powerful advocates from across Kansas. Coming from New York, I really wanted to come somewhere where the work that I did mattered. And I feel here in Kansas and in the 3 other states that I work on, the work here really matters. We're here because we believe in freedom, in dignity, in care, and the power of people coming together to demand better. Because of all of you, because of Kansans coming together to protect access to abortion, PPGP has been at the heart of abortion care in the post-Roe landscape. Since the fall of Roe in 2022, PPGP's health centers have nearly doubled the amount of abortion care provided in one state, in your state, Kansas. PPGP's Kansas health centers regularly see patients from banned states such as Texas and Louisiana, but also as far away as Florida and Ohio. We are the Planned Parenthood affiliate with the highest percentage of out-of-state abortion patients in the country, with 5 times the federation-wide average. Right now, from the federal level to state level, we're facing some of the most dangerous and dehumanizing policies and legislation this country has seen in recent memory. From anti-migrant policies that criminalize families and communities simply for existing, attacks on trans youth and LGBTQIA+ communities meant to erase people from public life. And let us not forget the SAVE Act that is saving no one and would intentionally strip away someone's right to vote just for changing their name. Kansas, this session, lawmakers pushed a 2026 ballot measure that would change the judicial selection process for our state Supreme Court justices, risking political influence over constitutional rights. As already mentioned, the legislature also passed laws codifying fetal personhood language that would give fetuses the same rights as a pregnant person and really opens the door to abortion bans, criminal charges for pregnancy outcomes, and other terrible legislation. Despite voters affirming abortion rights in 2022, symbolic bans and anti-abortion bills continue to be reintroduced as part of a broader campaign to chip away at reproductive freedom. From voting rights, anti-migrant policies, attacks on trans people, and anti-abortion laws, these are not separate fights. They are a part of the same effort to control, silence, and divide us. So, just a little context from what I do. I primarily work in policy. I get to come to some of these events sometimes, but I will say working in policy sometimes does feel isolating, and being here and seeing how many people are here and are joining the cause and are putting themselves physically in spaces in community with each other really reminds me why I do this work and why I came to this part of the country. So how can you help? What's the next step, right? First of all, you already started it. You showed up. You came here. You made your voices clear. The next thing you can do is donate. So a lot of these organizations, small donations go a long way, but if you can't donate money, donate your time. Volunteering is one of the foundations of how we are able to get people healthcare safely through our clinic escorts program, and then also how we educate the public with community outreach. So for the ballot measure that's happening next year, maybe you can come help us with the Vote No campaign. And then lastly, this was already mentioned, but speaking to your legislators, letting them know who you are, giving them the correct information, push back on misinformation, show up to a hearing next session, and provide your personal story. I can tell you that while a lot of members might already have their opinions made up, when you provide your story, many times you can at least sway one vote, and sometimes in a committee or sometimes on the floor, it only takes one vote for a bill to fail. So having your voice being heard in committee is super important. This is about more than fighting bad laws. It's about building a future where everyone can live with health, safety, and freedom. So today we speak not with fear, but with the fuel to keep going. We're not giving up. We're not going away. We're going to make sure Kansans have health care for as long as Planned Parenthood exists. We will be here. And we're going to keep fighting together, because when we show up like this, they cannot ignore us. And when we fight together, we win. Thank you so much for having me.
Our next speaker is Jolie Lippett. She is running for the Topeka City Council in District 1. Jolie Lippett is running, she's an avid, long-standing activist, advocate, community social worker, and artist who centers her work around her experiences and human rights with a career spanning over 2 decades. She is passionate about bringing change to Topeka. She's a survivor, a mom, and a force to be reckoned with. Please help me welcome Jolie Lippett.
Topeka! If you can hear my voice, clap once. If you can hear my voice, clap twice. If you can hear my voice, clap 3 times. Give it up for yourself. Give it up for your children. Give it up for your grandchildren. Give it up for Darcy. Family, my name is Jolie. I am an enrolled member of the program Potawatomi Nation. I am a 4-time rape survivor. I am a 5-time suicide attempt survivor. I am the child of addicts. I am a product of the foster care system. When I was 10 years old, my mother lost her battle with addiction and overdosed and died on heroin. My father was the one who administered the shot that killed her and did 6 years for manslaughter. I am the first in my family bloodline to find recovery. On Thursday, I celebrated 14 years. I came back to Topeka in 2018 to be connected to my roots after being adopted out. I came with me with a 4-year-old turning 5 off the Greyhound bus with $700 and 2 suitcases to my name. I had hope that when I got here I'd be able to get rooted, and my plans, they failed. And is there any mothers of little kids here? Yeah, so we know how expensive little kids are. I had to pave my way in Topeka. We ended up at the mission with 6 years sober. I was in and out in 15 days, and I was able to use the resources here in this community to rehab completely, serve as a springboard for me and my child. Today, you know, I've raised my son completely outside of the cycles of poverty, outside of the cycles of domestic violence, outside of the cycles of addiction, which ran rampant in my family. I have served Topeka and Shawnee County as a community social worker, working with our most vulnerable people to gain access to shelter, to gain access to the same reform processes that have helped me so much. And when I say by us, I want you to say for us. By us. For us. By us. For us. By us. For us. When I say with us, I want you to say of us. With us. Of us. With us. Of us. With us. And I don't know about you, but our leadership doesn't reflect people like me. Say, I know that's right. I know that's right. So, join me on August 5th. Please, please, please vote. Pay attention to your city leaders, as it was already shared. You know, I am the at-risk youth. I am the at-risk youth that is all over Topeka right now, exploring with guns and drugs and all these different things, boots on the ground, that are creating, right, say, hurt people, hurt people. Hurt people. Hurt people. It is our job to not just look after the ones in the good neighborhoods. It's our job as a community to shelter and love and provide our most vulnerable citizens with the same pathways to rehabilitation as everybody else. Let me hear you say, I know that's right. I know that's right. It is our responsibility to protect our young. I know that's right. It is our responsibility to make a way for them. I know that's right. So elect people like me, faces like me, of us, for us, of us, for us. Thank you.
And now I'd like to introduce you to Reverend Caroline Morrison. Reverend Morrison writes of herself, I am the wife of Jacqueline Morrison and mama to 4 incredible kids. I am ordained clergy, and I'm currently serving as a hospice chaplain, and I can be found preaching at various congregations around Topeka, with the most recent having been at Metropolitan Community Church. I recently retired after 20 years of service as a religious affairs specialist in the United States Army and Kansas Army National Guard, and I am an Operation Iraqi Freedom veteran. I have been a Kansan since the Army stationed me here in 1999, and I advocate for old people to be able to live authentically in all areas of their lives. Let's welcome Reverend Caroline Morrison.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. You can do better than that. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's like you're speaking into microphones. May our passionate words of protest find flight on the wind, just like this tent is trying to do. I was doing some math in preparation for today, and I realized that the 10-year anniversary of my coming out to my wife is this year. It's hard to believe 10 years ago we had that conversation. It's been almost a decade since she asked me, "Are you trans?" And I said, "Yes." And in the most anticlimactic way possible, she said, "Yeah, that makes sense." The liberation that I felt in that moment is more than I can ever express. 34 years of hiding and suppressing were ended because my wife loved me enough to ask. I'll never understand how I got lucky enough to have a person like her in my life, but I thank God every day that I do. Of course, 2015 was a very different time. The election of 2016 hadn't happened yet. Everyone still assumed Donald Trump's candidacy was too ridiculous to result in an election. I mean, he was running against a highly qualified, intelligent, accomplished woman who had a running mate named Tim. How could that fail? At that point, I served as a pastor in what I called an open closet, meaning I didn't try to hide, but I wasn't open about it either. And then that fateful night in 2016, as I watched results roll in and the unimaginable become reality, I prayed, I asked God what to do. And the message I received back told me that I was only answering my call part way. I was only partially serving because I was not answering it fully, authentically as me. I was serving it the way I'd been taught. That God only wanted me to serve in the way that my church had taught me God wanted me. Not authentically and fully as God had called me. In what is a familiar story to anyone that's chosen authenticity over the confines of a chrysalis, my family began to learn the price of authenticity over the next year, as we lost our appointment at the church that I was serving and connections to friends and family. We were forced to move yet again. And then a month after I came out to the Army, the first attempt at a transgender ban was announced by President Trump on Twitter. I lost my church, my status as a pastor, my status as a candidate for ordination. I lost almost everything except my wife, my children, a few close friends in pursuit of authenticity. And I prayed, begging God to explain why I was called to serve two places that didn't seem to want me: the church and the United States Army Chaplain Corps. Frustratingly, the only answer I ever seemed to receive to that question was that I already knew the answer. I had answered my call, but I needed to trust the timing. I needed to take time and prepare. I'd only just emerged from my chrysalis. I needed to allow my wings to dry before I could spread them and fly. And so I waited. For much of his first term, existence was my resistance. I spent so much of that first term simply doing my best to continue on, and frankly, existing was exhausting. There weren't as many attacks at that point, but it still felt like it was a constant wave. I was still in the military, and so the question of whether my service would be allowed to continue just kind of went on until finally, in 2020, a new president was elected, and I thought I'd have time to breathe. Instead, some of the people in this state house behind me took up the fight against my existence. I marched against the so-called Women's Bill of Rights. I educated others as that and other votes loomed in the distance. And I watched as our governor bravely defended my right to exist, and then watched as those who were elected to represent me voted to erase my existence from law. I listened as debates were had about my existence. I listened to the way people talked about my existence. And I heard the same tired arguments over and over about why my existence is some sort of ploy or plot to erase women. The bioessentialist arguments seem to be never-ending, even though they're not universal experiences. I've been told that I'm not a woman because I don't menstruate. I'm not a woman because I can't conceive a child. I'm not a woman because I can't carry a pregnancy. This body in which I had no choice had been used over and over as evidence that I don't exist. It's estimated that 1 in 5,000 cisgender women are born missing parts of their reproductive system. They won't menstruate or conceive children. When you start to look at the bioessentialist arguments against the existence of trans people, they start to fall apart because you start to realize that there's really only one universal experience among women, and it's found in the way we're oppressed by the patriarchy. It does not matter if you are cisgender or transgender, black or white, poor or rich, heterosexual or homosexual. If you are a woman, you've experienced the oppression of the patriarchy. And we should be united in the common fight against our common enemy. But instead, we're divided and pitted against one another. We're made to believe we're each other's enemies because those in power fear what will happen when we finally realize the power we have is a united voice. We saw a taste of that when we defeated the abortion amendment that has been repeatedly pushed by members of this legislation. We did that. Women did that. And the fear of those in power was confirmed in that moment. Throughout history, we find women that have stood for what is right. One of my favorite stories in all of Scripture is the story of Queen Esther, who went through a year of transition before finally being recognized as ready to meet the king who would eventually become her husband. And she kept her status as a Jew hidden until the time that she could no longer stay silent. And she came forth and advocated on behalf of her people, knowing there were two possible outcomes for her coming out. The Syrophoenician woman in Scripture and the woman at the well, two unnamed women, held Jesus accountable for his actions and the actions of his people. We have writings of the influences of the Founding Fathers' wives on their decisions and actions. The only reason anyone can make an argument about my DNA is because of a woman scientist named Rosalind Franklin who had to sit and watch as the men that stole her work received their Nobel Prizes. If you look throughout the footnotes of history, you find women that should have been main characters. Or at least you could have. Nowadays, there are women that don't even make it into the footnotes. Under the auspices of ending DEI and wokeness, the stories of women's contributions to this country have been erased and removed from libraries and websites. Stories of Ruby Bridges and Rosa Parks are gone. The story of Stonewall riots have been altered to remove Marsha P. Johnson, the black trans woman who threw the first brick, from the postings on the historical site and the website. The Smithsonian and National Women's History Museum have been ordered to remove all trans women and mentions of trans women from within them. And while my cisgender sisters are regulated to the footnotes of history, those in power are trying to erase trans women from it entirely. But our divine, authentic diversity ensures that we will never be fully erased. Even as legislators fight to remove everything they deem to be connected to diversity, equity, and inclusion, we must remember there's a different DEI, which connects all of us. In Latin, the word Deus, spelled DEI, means God. Scripture says we are all connected as bearers of the image of God, of the Imago Dei. And as evidenced by all the expressions of humanity, the image of God is nothing if not diverse. You cannot remove diversity, equity, and inclusion from the creation of a diverse deity. Additionally, since we're connected as bearers of the image of God, we are all DEI hires, called by our Creator to love each other, love wisdom, and love justice, and do so authentically. Now, I don't know about you, but I am tired of fighting for my right to exist. I'm tired of having to fight against ignorance to gain a space at the table. I am sick and tired of having to worry about the next election because my right to exist is based more on policy than on law. And when Republicans passed the Women's Bill of Rights and overrode the governor's veto in Kansas, they seemed to think that that would just be the end of it, that trans people would just quietly disappear. But that isn't how any of that works. We've been here since the beginning, and we will be here until the end. And there is no going back, because once you emerge from a chrysalis, there's no returning to it, because you are bigger than it ever allowed you to be. I tell you today that I may be exhausted, but I'm not done fighting. I may be exhausted, but I'm not thirsty. limitations that society has placed upon you and upon your voice. Those limitations don't matter to me. We are accompanied in our cause to serve our call by our Creator, and our Creator is bigger than any legislation that can be passed against us. Our call is bigger than any opinion from any legislator that seeks to try to define us out of existence. And the call of God to justice, love, and authenticity is bigger than the hate and prejudices of humanity. People here in Topeka and in Washington can do their best to silence us, but they cannot stop us. Even if our voices are silenced, our existence in and of itself will always be resistance to the tyranny of hate. My siblings, I pray that you will join me in unity. I pray that you will join me beyond the intersections of our fights. And just as I stand for the reproductive rights of every person with a uterus, I ask that you stand alongside me in the struggle to exist. I ask that you stand alongside me as we fight to someday see the realization of the rights of all to live into the unalienable rights endowed by our Creator as put to paper in the Declaration of Independence. My beloved siblings, may our one voice resonate through the halls of legislatures around the country so that those with power will know that the misuse of that power will no longer be tolerated. May we prepare ourselves for the fights to come in local elections and state elections, in the federal midterms, so that justice will prevail once again. And finally, may you never doubt the power of your authenticity. May you never doubt the importance of being you. Your piece of the image of God brings a further completeness to the beautiful diversity in which God exists. And I can see the power of your authentic expression of God in each of you. Thank you.
Now let us welcome Jason Mayman from Topeka Jump. Associate Community Organizer for Jump, a graduate of Florida State University and a recent arrival to the city of Topeka, Jason works with Topeka Jump to empower people of faith to live into their scriptural calling to do justice in our community. Jason hopes to facilitate this by training lay leaders and clergy to build people power and then using that power to push those solutions to serious community problems. Let us welcome Jason Mayman.
Good afternoon. Oh, that is loud. Good afternoon, everybody. I did not have the time to write a script, so I'm going to be speaking from the heart today. Is that okay? Okay. Now, I'm about to ask a yes or no question, and if the answer is yes, I want you to shout yes. Are you angry about the level of injustice that's happening in our community and in our nation right now? Yes! Absolutely. If you are angry, then that is good. You are supposed to feel angry. Now, what I am here to talk about is Topeka Jump, which is an example of what you can do with that anger. So, jump for justice, yes. If I say Topeka Jump, you say jump for justice. Topeka Jump?
Jump for justice!
Topeka Jump?
Jump for justice!
So Topeka Jump is a coalition of 33 faith communities within Shawnee County, and it's growing. And what we do is we provide a vehicle for those communities of faith to live up to their scriptural calling to do justice. Because most faith communities, most faith traditions, whether it's Christianity, Islam, Judaism, they all have justice at the heart of their scripture. And what we want to do is provide people a vehicle so they can act that out. So what I'm going to do is very briefly describe our annual cycle that we go through in Topeka Jump, give an example of a community problem that we're trying to address right now, because it is at the heart of a lot of problems, which is the lack of affordable housing. Who here either has struggled with affordable housing or knows someone that has? Yes. Okay, so I'll talk about that, and then I'll leave you with one more message, not as a staff member of Topeka Jump, but just as an organizer. So, starting with the annual cycle, every year in the fall, Topeka Jump's faith communities, we gather in listening sessions or house meetings where members of our congregations and members of the community gather to share personal stories about how they and their loved ones have been impacted by a variety of problems in our community, whether that's the increasing level of gun violence, the rising levels of homelessness, lack of affordable housing, lack of access to mental health care, the list goes on. And then our members come together at a major assembly in the fall and we vote democratically on what issue it is that we want to tackle as an organization. So in 2023 in the fall, we voted to address the increasing rise of homelessness in our community. And then from around December to April or May, we have our research to action cycle where we then meet with stakeholders in the community, we meet with people who have been impacted, we meet with public officials so we can figure out where are the gaps in our resources already to address that problem. What do we not have? And then we meet with stakeholders and experts around the country to try and figure out, well, what solutions can we bring to Topeka to help fill that gap? And again, I'll give an example when we talk about affordable housing. All of that work culminates in our major annual assembly every year, the Nehemiah Action. Were any of you here at the Nehemiah Action this year?
Yes!
Woo! Well, thank you all. So yes, we just had our Nehemiah Action a couple days ago on Thursday, where we had just about 1,000 people gathered at White Concert Hall on Washburn campus. So we do this assembly every year to bring these solutions to the appropriate public officials who have the power and influence to implement these solutions, and we get them to commit to it. And then in the summer, we meet with local corporations like Blue Cross Blue Shield, Storm on Vail, to tell them about the impact of our work so that they can invest, so that we can continue that work. So that's the annual cycle, and if you want to find out more about how to get involved with that cycle, you can find some information at the table down there. What I want to highlight now is how that actually works with one of our issues. So affordable housing is a major issue. A lot of other things connect to that. If you don't have access to safe and affordable housing, you're having to choose between rent or food on the table, then that means you're probably insecure when it comes to food. You're maybe skipping out on medications. You might not be in the safest neighborhood. You might have effects on your mental health. Affordable housing really is a cornerstone of a lot of other problems. So all the way back in 2015, I believe, Topeka Jump identified that we have a major gap of affordable housing. We actually have a shortage of about 10,000 affordable homes and apartments in Topeka, and I'm sure that list has actually grown since then. What we found is that a potential solution that can help expand our capacity for affordable housing is called an Affordable Housing Trust Fund. It has gap funding that it provides to developers so that they can produce more affordable housing. This exists in communities across the country. So now, here's some important but infuriating pieces of our timeline. We identified this as a solution all the way back in 2019, and our city council implemented an Affordable Housing Trust Fund ordinance. And then the very next year, in 2020, they paid for a housing study. And the number one solution in that study was the same thing we told them the year before, that we need an affordable housing trust fund that needs to be funded every year. And then fast forward several years, we didn't get to $1 million until 2023, which was almost 2 years ago. Actually, 2 years ago, not even almost, it was 2 years ago. And in those 2 years, from then to now, that money still has not been used. It has been sitting there. So the commitment that we won a couple of nights ago at this year's Nehemiah Action is we had the city manager and 2 city council members up on stage, and they publicly committed to working with Topeka Jump to identify and develop a dedicated public funding proposal of $2 million a year by September. So that is an example of how it works. We heard the issues of affordable housing in the fall at our listening sessions. We did research, we identified the solution, and through year-to-year Nehemiahs, we got commitment, and we're going to continue to push for them. So if you want to be involved with Topeka Jump, please find more information down there. Now the last thing I want to leave you with, not as a member of Topeka Jump or as a staff member, but just as an organizer, because even outside of work, I organize, it's who I am, is a call to action. So I see a lot of signs that say resist, and I think that is very important. In times of crisis like what we're dealing with right now, we have to resist what's going on. But what's equally important to resisting the unjust world that we live in is building the just world that we want to be in. Can I get an applause for that? You have to resist and build at the same time. And when I say build, we have to build our people power, because the power of the people is always stronger than the people in power. Have to remember that. So whether it's through Topeka Jump or some other mass organization, please get involved with an organization that does the work of building
Now we're going to hear from some of our high school students here in Topeka. The first one is Caroline Tolan. She is a senior at Topeka High and is in her second year as chair of the Kansas High School Democrats. She is an avid swimmer and musician and is involved in various honors organizations and clubs at Topeka High. Let us welcome Caroline Tolan.
Good afternoon. My name is Caroline. I'm a senior at Topeka High and chair of the Kansas High School Democrats. I'm a proud Democrat, a woman, I was a first-time voter in November, and I'm a proud Kansan. I want you to take a look around. Look at the faces beside you. Different ages, different backgrounds, different stories, but we're all here for the same reason. We believe in justice, fairness, and the power of people standing together. But we're not just here to talk. We're here to demand change. We're here to show that Kansas is a place where rights matter, whether it's the right to vote, the right to be treated with dignity, or the right to make choices about our own lives. Too often, we're hearing our leaders tell us to wait. They say change takes time, but how long do we have to wait? How long until every Kansan, no matter their race, gender, income, or background, has the same opportunities, the same protections, and the same freedom? We've seen attempts to silence voices at the ballot box. We are seeing attacks on the rights of workers, women, LGBTQ+ people, and immigrants. We are seeing those in power put profits over people. But we're not going to stand by and let it happen. But here's what they're not going to expect. Young people. The generation that refuses to sit down and shut up. The generation that organizes, votes, and fights for a future that works for everyone, not just the powerful few. They underestimate us. They think we're just hashtags and protest signs. But we are more than that. We are voices that are not going to be ignored. We are voters that will decide elections. We are the workers, the dreamers, and the change makers that will not stop until justice is a reality. So what are we going to do? We're going to take action. We'll register voters. We're going to show up at city halls and school board meetings. We hold our leaders accountable. And when they try to divide us, we're going to stand together. Stronger, louder, and more determined than ever. Kansas, this is our home, and we're here to make sure it's a home for everyone. So let's raise our voices, let's make them hear us, and let's unite for rights.
And now let us welcome Logan Hortenstein. Logan Hortenstein, pronouns he, him, is a senior at Topeka High School. He is a co-president of GSA and co-editor of the school newspaper. He is passionate about ensuring everyone has access to quality education, and he is a firm believer in the phrase, knowledge is power. Please welcome Logan Hortenstein.
I'm a little too short for this. Hello everyone, my name is Logan Hortenstein, and like all of you, I came from a woman. I feel like we tend to forget that each and every one of us came from a woman. We all came from mothers and grandmothers and great-grandmothers before them. I asked my friends what they thought I should talk about today in my speech, and they told me that I needed to mention healthcare. Not so funny enough, there was a pro-life picketer outside of our school just 2 days ago. It's not the first time that he or other like-minded men has chosen that spot to stand in, offering high schoolers pamphlets and holding signs with pictures of fetuses, standing just outside of the school property so they can't be asked to leave. Sometimes I wonder if their moms were too strict with them, and maybe that's why they feel the need to control every woman they come across. Your body is exactly that, your own body. Each and every person deserves to decide what happens to it. If you don't believe in abortion, then you don't have to get one. It's as simple as that. But they seem to be more concerned with controlling other people's bodies than their own. I talked to my mom and my grandma, and they both mentioned to say that 79% of women take their husband's last name. Another 5% hyphenate their last name. Countless other people are trans like me, and other people change their name for any other reason. Sorry. Excuse me. Thank you. These extra steps to get the required papers and documentation to prove your citizenship take extra time and money that not everybody has. It's not about ensuring you're a citizen, it's about controlling us and silencing our voices. The women before us fought so hard for these rights. We shouldn't have to, but we need to fight just as hard. Not just for ourselves, but for the generations before and after ours. We cannot allow ourselves to be pushed back in time. We need to continue to come together, stand up, and speak up. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now let us welcome Phoebe Edgerton-Kufal. She's a senior at Topeka West High School. After graduation, she plans to study stage management at the University of Evansville. In their free time, Phoebe enjoys watching movies, crocheting, and eventually roller skating. Welcome, Phoebe Edgerton-Kufal.
Hi everybody, my name is Phoebe. How are we doing this afternoon? When it's legal. A little fun fact I love to tell people is that I am technically a stock photo. If you search my name a little ways down the list of links, up comes a picture from 2014 when I was 7 years old, standing behind my mom on the Wichita courthouse steps on the day that gay marriage was legalized in parts of Kansas. At 7 years old, I served as witness to their marriage. 2 years later, in third grade, I cried the morning that I was witness to who our country had elected. Back then, I could tell myself that the threat we were facing was somewhere distant, somewhere that wouldn't reach me or my loved ones in the next 4 years. But it's been 8 years and there's nothing left to wait for. This November, I found out in the early mornings, just like everyone else, that we had somehow traveled 4 years and 60 years back at the same time. That day was one of the saddest of my life so far, and there has since been little to no silver lining. But when I remember that day, I recall the love that was present nearly as much as the sorrow. I woke up at 6 a.m. to listen to the college radio show that one of my best friends hosts. I heard the news and resigned myself to the coming years of injustice, but it was accompanied by a friend's voice and music. I drove to school early, crying in my car, but I watched the sunrise and tipped $5 on a $5 coffee. Before classes started, my friends cried with me, and my teacher recommended that I take my pronouns off of social media. But I got to walk through that day crying among people that I care about, singing in choir, reading Hamlet. What I cried for in fourth grade, and many times since this past November, is here and moving fast. I've seen what it's already doing to this country. It's been less than 3 months, and I am the most scared that I have ever been. When I think of the American dream, I don't think of posters in classrooms that tell you what to do if ICE comes to your front door. As a senior in high school, it's hard not to think that we're about to enter adulthood in a country hell-bent on making life something to survive. But I'd like to share with you a small and incomplete list of reasons why I believe things may be okay. 1, we are all here today. 2, my cat looked really cute when she stretched this morning. 3, my mother spends her evenings writing poetry and hosting open mics as a safe space for anyone with something to say. 4, protests just like this are appearing all over the country, showcasing that our dissent is in fact patriotic. 5, I'm almost done crocheting a sweater for the first time. Thank you. 6, Cory Booker set a new record for a marathon speech in the Senate, erasing the previous record, which belonged to a man who spoke in favor of segregation. 7, there's so much music left to hear, so many movies to watch, and so many people to meet. 8, people my age are becoming more informed, more angry, and more motivated by the minute. 9, I have this opportunity to pay witness to the amazing people in my town and country discover a spark within themselves that leads them to create change no matter how hard it is. This list may only contain 9 items, yet new, more unjust things counter it every day. But I intend to keep adding.
In the words of Ani DeFranco, the world owes me nothing and we owe each other the world. Soon, I'll be an adult, probably drowning in student loan debt, counting pennies for groceries and watching global temperatures climb. But I will also be reaching people through the art of storytelling and theater, strengthening community bonds and being an activist where I can. My motivation for that is not revenge upon the cruel people in power, though that comes as a very close second. Instead, I get up every morning because of the love in the world that has not yet been crushed. The law of conservation energy comes to mind. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, rather it can only be transformed or transferred from one form to another. I've observed that this doesn't only apply to chemical reactions. This law is in constant practice, through laughter, through love, through anger, and through defiance. Since 2016, they've tried to break us up, to pit us against each other, to make us forget that government is supposed to serve the people, not the other way around. They've had some victories, but time and time again, we come back here, standing together and demanding to never again be silenced. The Declaration of Independence says that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. In short, we have the power and deserve to exercise it when we know damn well that our government no longer has an interest in our well-being. The mutual love for humanity and community that I've been rambling about may need to step into the passenger seat while we take back our country, but it's important that we never forget that history is happening to all of us right now. I'm grateful to be up here today, and I hope that you all understood my meanings from my admittedly disorganized thoughts. It's been a long time since I stood behind my mom on the Wichita courthouse steps and Getty Images slapped a logo on my face, cheeks pink from the cold and tears of joy in my eyes. But I really don't feel much different from that day, or from the day in 4th grade that I cried about the 2016 election. I'm still scared, and young, and hopeful, and angry, and determined, and sad, and furious, and so many more adjectives that I would never be able to fit in a timely manner. I'm still a confused kid, but today, I'm a confused kid talking right here with all of you. This time, my love is battling to outweigh my fear, and I think it's going to win, and I think we all are. Thank you.
And now let us welcome Kivrin Staley. Kivrin is a junior at Topeka West High School. They are heavily involved in their school's theater program and qualified for nationals this summer in Indiana. They are deeply invested in their local community and currently serve as the Shawnee County Young Democrats Vice President. In their free time, they love reading books, fighting fascism, and hanging out with their mom. Please welcome Kivrin Staley.
Okay, my speech is not as good as Phoebe's, but we're gonna go with it. It's also a little cynical, but bear with me. Stop telling me that my generation is going to fix things. Stop telling me that my generation is gonna change the world. Stop telling me that you believe in us and that you know we can make a difference. There is no 17-year-old girl who's gonna magically appear, choose between two guys, and start a revolution. That stuff happens in dystopian fantasy novels. My generation is not here to save you. My generation was born into a horror show and we're just trying to survive. I'm 16. I'm 16 years old. I'm still in high school. I'm still just a kid who's trying to make it through the day. I'm a kid who argues over stupid things with my brother and cries in my mom's arms because the world has failed me. I'm 16. I can't vote. I can't run for office. Without the right to vote, I can't help make the systemic changes and laws and policies that need to happen. And while I wait to be old enough, those laws are being changed. It feels like daily, to make it more difficult for more people to participate in our democracy at even this most basic level. We're all busy, and we're all scared, and we're all worried about how the rapid-fire, intentional chaos of the last few months will impact us and those we love. And so we try to be brave, and show up, and protest, and speak out, and write letters, and call, and call, and call to ask our elected representatives to be brave and take action. But we don't have a guidebook for how this works. I've read the dystopian novels, and I've read the World War II resistance stories, and it's not clear to me where we go from here. In the middle of all of this, I'm trying to graduate high school, go to college, start a career, and figure out who I want to be in this world. Most of the people I know are 15, 16, 17-year-old kids. I'm excited to do my part. I'm grateful to be up here speaking about something I'm passionate age or my grandparents' age say that the young people give them hope. The pressure that puts on me, on us, is too much. I need them to give me hope. I need you to give us hope. You can't rely only on us. We still have to grow up. We might be headed towards dystopia, but this isn't a fantasy novel. I'm looking out at you and your signs and your concerned faces and your passion for justice. We are in a story where you have the ability to take a bigger role. I'm 16 and I don't have the knowledge or experience yet to know what that looks like. We need your actions, we need your leadership, we need your experience, and we need your help. Thank you for listening to my own brave attempt for action today, and I hope this rally inspires you to take your own brave actions because we need your hope. Thank you.
And now we turn to those from whom you have every right to expect that they will do what our last speaker currently asked that we do. Our first speaker in this group of representatives is Senator Dinah Sykes. She represents the 21st District in Johnson County, and she is also the minority leader in the Kansas Senate. She has been in the Kansas Senate since 2017. She is currently Vice Chair of the Confirmation Oversight Committee and the ranking minority member of the Education Committee. Please welcome Senator and Minority Leader Dinah Sykes.
Never be afraid to raise your voice for honesty and truth and compassion against injustice and lying and greed. I think William Faulkner's advice against fear is as relevant today as it was when he gave it in the 50s. So I'm pleased to be with you today. After the final week of the legislative session, being with friends and fellow laborers in the cause to make Kansas an amazing place to live, where everyone has the opportunity to flourish, encourages me. My hope is that gathering with like-minded people on this journey encourages you as well. Being in this work together makes all of the difference because no matter your race, gender, background, or belief, you deserve respect, opportunity, and freedom. After the end of the 2025 session, I think a Unite for Rights rally is just what we need to encourage and show us that we are not alone in our values or in our determination to see that people have the right to flourish. What times we live in. Who would have thought that we would still be fighting for basic human rights in 2025? And I want to say thank you to the organizers for inviting me to speak. For those who I haven't had the opportunity to meet, my name is Dinah Sykes, and I represent the 21st District in the Kansas Senate. I'm the mother of 2 adult sons. One of those just got engaged. I live in Lenexa with my husband Jeffrey, who's out there. Sorry. They're taking away our rights, and it pisses me off. I also have my dog Ice, which is my support dog for the last 90 days. I enjoy knitting, reading, and cooking. And yes, there's always someone in the kitchen with Dinah. I also have the honor of leading the Kansas Senate Democrats. But when my husband and I moved to Kansas, I saw this was an amazing place. And it's where I chose to put down my roots. The opportunities for education available to families was amazing. Fast forward a couple of years, and I saw how policy choices were eroding that opportunity. And I know I wanted to make sure that this was the kind of place that my own sons would choose to start their families and celebrated the installation of a new mural in the Kansas State Capitol. Manhattan, Kansas artist Phyllis J. Garbo Coon created a new mural called Rebel Women. That mural depicts 13 women key to the fight for women's rights in our state. And I don't have time to highlight all 13, but today we march for rights, and it is fitting that we talk about those who went before us. We honor them not because things are how we want or how we hope for them to be. We honor them not because the fight is over. No, remembering, honoring, and marching is linked to the fact that we, all of us here today, join a proud tradition of Kansas women endowed with strength, courage, and tenacity to face down challenges and to overcome them. At the center of the mural is Clarina Nichols, who moved to Kansas in 1854 before it became a state. She was opposed to slavery. She moved here to ensure that Kansas was a free state. She moved here to advocate for women. She gathered signatures for petitions. She built support so that when the Wyandotte Constitution was adopted, it included provisions protecting women's rights in child custody, married women's property rights, and women's right to participate in elections. Also depicted is Elizabeth Lizzie Sheldon, who when she was admitted to the Kansas bar in 1902 was the only woman. She wrote these words: "The rights of citizens in the state of Kansas to vote, hold offices shall not be denied or abridged on the account of sex. Both male and female citizens of this state shall equally enjoy all civil, political, and religious rights and privileges." We join with those women and other women who are not depicted in the mural. If you allow me a moment, I want to highlight one other woman who I find deeply inspiring and from whom I am still learning. Carolyn Campbell was the first African American woman to be elected to the Topeka Unified School District 501 school board. Yes, she attended school and was a classmate of Linda Brown, who was the namesake of the Brown versus Board of Education case. And she went on to serve on the Kansas State Board of Education. Miss Campbell is still blazing her trail, and she does an excellent job of keeping my office as Senate Democratic leader running, and we deeply appreciate her strength, courage, and tenacity. Those women understood that the promise for everyone to flourish had to include women. They understood that we must nurture the God-given gifts and talents for each citizen of our state if we are to succeed. When times are tough, we must pull together and help our neighbors, exactly what we are doing today. Highlighting the role of women in Kansas history in our work to make this state a better place for everyone focuses our thoughts. With the challenges that we face, we might be tempted to just focus on the problems. We might be tempted to imagine the challenges are too great. We might even imagine that dissenting isn't worth the energy that it takes. However, perspective reminds us that darkness isn't forever. As strong as our enemies might seem, their bravado covers up their own self-doubt. And if we give in to despair, we forfeit the inheritance of courage, compassion, and common sense that the women who went before us displayed. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This legislative session has been a shit show. Again and again, Republican politicians claim to stand for the rights and the well-being of all Kansans. And while their mouths are full of righteous words, their policies ignore or harm many who they loudly claim to protect. With their supermajority, Republican politicians have passed legislation making the state less welcoming to men, women, and families. Take, for example, the supermajority's nonstop attacks on reproductive rights. Under the guise of protecting and adding additional financial support for pregnant Kansas, Republican legislators once again demonstrated their only priority is inserting the government in private decisions and rolling back our reproductive rights that voters resoundingly protected in 2022. Knowing that Kansas closed the front door to restricting reproductive rights, House Bill 2062 claimed to provide financial support for families while trying to insert fetal personhood language into Kansas law. And during the debate, they pretended that there was no hidden agenda. I have news for those legislators. Kansas women are not stupid, and we see what you're doing. These laws harm all Kansans. They force women into impossible situations, denying them the ability to make the choices for their own bodies, their health, and their futures. They cause couples wanting to start a family to pause, wondering what will happen if there are complications. Let's not forget about health care. Republican leadership's stubborn refusal to expand Medicaid hurts all Kansans. While women would especially benefit if Medicaid was expanded, there are many in our state, while working, cannot afford to pay for insurance. When Republicans refuse to expand Medicaid, a critical provider of health services for millions, they undermine rural hospitals and they hurt Kansans across our state. Across the state, we see how Republican policies hurt workers. Republicans resist policies that would provide for paid family leave, hurting fathers and mothers. They stand in the way of increasing the minimum wage. They oppose policies that would support working parents, ensuring that they have access to child care. The reality is, when Republicans claim to care about empowering Kansans in the workplace, but vote against legislation that would support them, they're sending a message loud and clear. Kansans' labor, Kansans' lives, and Kansas' well-being are only a priority when they think it helps them win an election. Yeah. I'm not even going to go into depth about their number one campaign promise last year to address high property taxes. And when we left yesterday without any true relief for Kansas families. This disconnect where Republican politicians in Kansas say they stand for Kansans, but introduce policies that work against them, cannot continue. It is time for us to hold them accountable. It's time for us to ask, how can they claim to support Kansans while taking away their rights, their health care, and their economic security? Real support to ensure everyone flourishes means protecting rights, ensuring their health and safety, building a strong economy with workers, and fighting for a future where all Kansans have the opportunity to succeed. Hear me. We deserve more than empty promises. We deserve action, and we deserve honesty. My focus and that of my Kansas Senate Democratic colleagues is to help all Kansans cope with rising prices. And I don't want you to miss the word all in that previous sentence. I'm not here just for urban Kansans, and I'm not here just for rural Kansans. No matter how folks try to divide us, we are better and stronger together. And our policies need to help all Kansans. Here are a few of the ways my caucus demonstrated our commitment. We introduced legislation to support working families by increasing access to affordable, high-quality child care and creating a system for paid family leave. We introduced legislation to protect the ability of workers to bargain with their employers, ensuring that they have the ability for safe workplaces and fair wages. It doesn't matter how much you make if you don't make it home at the end of the day. After Republican politicians introduced a bill to lay the groundwork for fetal personhood, the very concept that led to IVF access being restricted in Alabama, we introduced a bill to protect IVF access for Kansas families, and it failed on party lines. These are just some of the policy proposals that my caucus, which is full of rebel women, have supported. However, our vision for Kansas' future will never become a reality unless we elect more women and more people who care about the rights for all in the legislature. Going back to my southern roots, that means rights for all, y'all. None of that vision will happen if we don't elect a governor to continue the steady leadership that has begun under Governor Laura Kelly. So as we look forward to 2026, our focus must be on something powerful and fundamental to how women change the world. Conversations. We join the long tradition of women who share their hopes through conversations for a brighter tomorrow. I highlighted just a few of those, but there are so many more. We need to have honest and perhaps uncomfortable conversations with our neighbors, friends, and family. We cannot continue to only speak to people that we like or that we know. Many Kansans have no idea what is happening in Topeka or how it affects their families. Some are starting to wake up and see what's happening in D.C., and that gives us an opportunity. We need to discuss how policies are affecting our communities, from farms to food, from education to economic development, from healthcare to housing, and from water to wealth inequality. These are issues that affect us all. The work ahead of us is not easy. However, we must flip seats in the Kansas House, and we can and we must elect a strong Democrat to succeed Governor Kelly. We must restore balance to an increasing, unhinged Topeka. When women are at the table, decisions are made with a fuller understanding of the diverse needs of our state. Women bring perspectives, ideas, and solutions that are often overlooked. And their leadership is not just a matter of fairness, it's a matter of better governance for all. So the good news is that women being involved in politics isn't a new thing. Our history is full of women like Clarina Nichols, Lizzie Sheldon, and Carolyn Campbell. Today is our day to show strength, courage, and tenacity. So are you ready to join me in this work?
The next speaker who was supposed to come forward was Senator Marcy Francisco. Is she here?
Marcy not make it.
In that case, we move on to the representatives. The next representative to speak is Tobias Schlingenziepen. He represents the 55th District here in Shawnee County in Topeka, just across the street from Topeka Boulevard here, all the way to Gage, from Washburn University to the Kansas River. He has served in the Kansas legislature since 2023. He's a longtime resident of Topeka, graduating from Topeka West High School and a graduate of the University of Kansas after attending Washburn University. As a senior pastor of First Congregational Church, he has advocated tirelessly for the underserved in the city of Topeka, including a role as lead chaplain for the Topeka Police Department. Representative Schlingenziepen currently serves as ranking minority member of the Committee on Corrections and Juvenile Justice, the Agricultural and Natural Resources Committee, Local Government Committee, and several others. So let us welcome Tobias Schlingenziepen. Sorry about that. Today I'd like us to briefly think about a word that all of the speakers have reminded me of, and that is the word compatriot. I'd like to address you as my compatriots.
Okay.
I think of a word that the famous Dr. Samuel Johnson spoke in the 18th century when he said, patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel. And what he meant by that was the kind of flag-wrapped patriotism that doesn't want debate, that doesn't acknowledge diversity, that simply wants to control, as one of our speakers so properly put it. We need to discover each other not as patriots who divide, but as compatriots, that is, patriots who unite. And unite for the kind of happiness that each of us is given and driven to pursue in our own way. Today we find ourselves on the precipice of our nation being thrust into an authoritarian regime where oligarchs control wealth, power, and our government. We have a choice. We can stand idly by while our Constitution is torn to shreds, our rights are plundered, and the core services of our government are hollowed out, or we can do what we're doing today. We can take a stand. I thank you all for coming out, and I thank those who organized this event for their hard work in doing so. It is not an easy thing to bring people together, especially on a day like today, but these times call for it, and I thank you all for your leadership. Those who currently control our nation's destiny literally wish to erase our history because it doesn't fit into their shallow, sheltered, and backward view of America. They're slashing services for our veterans, cutting funding and federal employees who serve our servicemen and women. Many of these were exposed to burn pits and other toxic chemicals during their time of service. This is deeply, deeply shameful. If they won't honor those who gave so much, sometimes making the ultimate sacrifice, what on earth have the rest of us to expect? I want to talk for a moment about the man who's really calling the shots in the federal government right now, and it's not Donald J. Trump. Elon Musk is orchestrating the largest attack on our veterans, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and education in recent history. While those in government do this all the time in the name of government efficiency, not just in Washington, but also here in Topeka, let's be very clear about this. They don't give a damn about our national debt. All of these cuts aren't going towards paying down any debt. They're going to pay for even more tax breaks for the ultra-wealthy in the top 1%, and you and I, the working Americans, are going to foot the bill. And we don't have to look far to see this DC playbook playing out in our own state. GOP leadership for decades has had a supermajority in the Kansas legislature, but they now are able to threaten and twist enough arms to impose their will on almost the entirety of their caucus. We had a real opportunity this session to pass tax relief for families, fixed-income seniors, and hardworking Kansans all over the state. Relief that would actually help people deal with rising prices and inflation. But just like Donald Trump and DC Republicans, the GOP leadership couldn't care less about actually tackling costs for Kansas families. Instead, they rammed through a regressive flat tax that gives enormous cuts to billionaires like Charles Koch, while the middle class is left holding the bag. This reckless, short-sighted policy will take us right back to the failed Brownback era of tax experiments where funding for our schools, healthcare, and infrastructure are slashed. Speaking of Washington Republicans, there's a man there right now that's supposed to be advocating for Kansas and not against us. Senator Roger Marshall has, in my view, broken the sacred vow that so many of our leaders have made to Kansans, from Dwight Eisenhower to Nancy Kassebaum and our current governor, Laura Kelly. We have been fortunate to have leaders from both parties who put what's best for our state ahead of themselves. Instead, Roger Marshall is hiding from us, his constituents. He has stood idly by, maybe in his $1.2 million beach house in Florida, while services for veterans are slashed. Elon Musk and his interns rifle through our Social Security numbers and bank account information. Tariffs that hurt our farmers and public education under attack. And in the face of crashing stock markets, what does Marshall have to say? Tighten your belts and suffer the pain. It's the patriotic thing to do. He even likened it to a surgical procedure. It may hurt now, he says, but it will help later. If he practices medicine the way he practices politics, he should be up in front of the medical review board. But I have some good news. The American people are beginning to stand up to those attacks on the very fabric of our nation. Just last week, voters took a stand in Wisconsin and rejected an extremist in their Supreme Court race, despite Elon Musk spending over $20 million to buy the seat on the bench. The GOP leadership in Kansas has put yet another constitutional amendment on the ballot next year that injects more DC-style politics into our state and would put Supreme Court justices up for election, and with that, available to the highest bidder. We saw this same kind of thing just a few years ago. And what did Kansas voters say? They said, no! And in the primary election of 2026, we're going to see the same thing, but this time on the ballot. And what is it that we are going to say this time? We are going to say, no! We've told them no once before, and I have faith we will tell them no once again. Continue to speak up, continue to act, continue to fight. We have critical elections coming up in 2025 and 2026 that will determine the future of our cities, our counties, our state, and our nation. I think our democracy is in grave danger. I believe you think that too, or you wouldn't be here today. The next 2 years, before we even get to the next presidential election, will determine our collective future. This, friends, is our American revolutionary moment, and we need to seize it and reclaim our legacy. Not going back to where we once were, but to use this energy to chart a new path forward for future generations. A future that is truly, as Abraham Lincoln once said, government of, by, and for the people. Thank you. Well, the next person who's going to speak, my dear friend, Representative Kirk Haskins. Kirk is, you've heard of the Blues Brothers, right? Well, Kirk and I refer to each other as the Bison Bros. We sit together on the House floor, and sometimes we encourage each other when times are tough, as they have been these last few weeks. Kirk is a junior member of the Kansas House, elected to the House for the first time in 2023. He's a ranking minority member of the Joint Committee on Information Technology and the Elections Committee. Kirk is a strong advocate for workers' rights and also serves on the Committee for Higher Education, as Representative Haskins is a professor at Baker University. Please help me in welcoming Representative Kirk Haskins.
Hello, Kansas. This is a beautiful day. Let's give a round of applause for my Bison Bro, Tobias. He's given us a great speech. Folks, it's been a great afternoon. It's a beautiful day here. It's an honor to truly be up here to give you some comments. As a representative of House District 53, which is on the west side of Topeka, it's been an honor for me the last 3 years to continue to represent my neighbors. As you might know, I was minding my own business in 2022 when I got a call from Vic Miller, who was informed by a speaker who will be up here soon, Alexis Simmons, that I might want to run for office. When he called, I had to clarify who is Vic Miller. And once he said that he would like for me to run, I had a heart-to-heart with my Andrea down there, and I couldn't have thought what would chapter in my life moving forward. And so I have been humbled and also apologetic for being so late to this fight. You see, I like to talk. It's a dangerous place to be in between myself and a microphone and an audience. That's one of the perks of being a professor. But I was raised by two Republicans, and these Republicans still with me are moved into Brewster Place, which we experienced that for the first time of moving our family into senior living. And they taught me to treat people as they want to be treated. No matter my ideology, they would say, Kirk, remember that every person has a parent, every person has a voice, and every person has a soul. And I try to remember that when I stand up and fight for the rights of those that can't speak. I may get teased by others that, Kirk, you're just too nice. Well, I don't know how else to be. But just because I'm nice doesn't mean I like bullies. I lost 2 weeks of recess at Potwood Elementary because I stood up to a bully who was harassing a friend of mine. That 2 weeks, that's a sacrifice. That's a lot of sitting in the hallway. You know, and I like to, if you will, tell a story because every day I go out and I learn something new. Like Shawnee County has the highest infant mortality rate in the state. That's my zip code 6604 is the highest zip code in the state when it comes to infant mortality. I didn't know that until somebody like you came up to me and said, do you know about this and why expanding Medicaid is important? But this day on the campaign trail, knocking doors on a 100-degree day, sweating, I was almost to my car when this constituent came up to me. She asked me what I was doing, and I was like, I'm running for office. She asked me my name, my party, but then she asked me, let me ask you a question. What do you think about my uterus? And I said, I don't think I should be thinking about your uterus. And she grinned and she said, that's right, stay out of my uterus. She then ran inside, got a Gatorade, brought her husband out, informed her husband, Kirk's staying out of my uterus. We had a wonderful conversation in the shade of their garage. And the interesting thing is that constituent wasn't even on my list to knock on the doors. She just saw someone who might need a Gatorade, and she was active enough, and she's such a supporter now. Gentlemen, I would like to also state that my Andrea on the way up here informed me of a study done by Stockholm University and the University of Manchester in 2020. It was revealed and determined that the woman's egg produces a chemical superpower. And they select the sperm that will come in. They decide on what male. They choose what sperm. Do you know what happens to all those other sperms?
Bye, bye, baby.
Their heads pop off. So, gentlemen, I encourage you to do what my father has always said. Sometimes the best advice is just to shut up and listen. And so let's be honest. This is your house. We're standing outside, but you should come in. Elected officials, we're just caretakers. We're trying to represent and do what's right. And this supermajority, no matter what they tell you, they are not doing what's right, and they refuse to listen, not only to the minority, but to the majority of Kansans. Look at their campaign slogans that they gave out. Look at what they said on the House floor. You know, they're about freedom. They're about family. They're about fiscal responsibility. But after 3 years, there is one thing I can tell you for certain, after understanding how this game is played, is they lie.
Yeah.
They stretch the truth.
Yeah.
They manipulate facts so they can sound promising.
Yep.
I mean, you've heard about this. They promised lower property taxes. They campaigned on that. Yet here we are, working families, still drowning in rising costs, while the wealthiest Kansans out of our state corporations, they get to cash in on the tax breaks for their boats. And it used to be their airplanes until it was changed yesterday. And any other loophole they want. They target our young people, our people of color, our seniors, our working class Kansans, our disabled, by going out and saying they are stealing our elections. We need to remove the 3-day grace period. I don't know about you, last time I mailed something out, it took 8 days to get it to the source. We have the shortest election, advanced voting period in the state of Kansas, and they just took it away with a lie. Democrats are stealing the election. And women, you just can't handle voting. Pat Proctor, he's running for Secretary of State. I'm really proud of my election committee. Representative Simmons was on it. We fought a good fight, and we were going to continue to fight when it comes to voting rights. I want to conclude on one thing that we don't talk much about, and that's higher ed. You may have heard of what the Trump administration is doing, extorting our universities, our best and brightest research institutions, by withholding grant money, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, on the condition that you stop this DEI. Now, diversity, equity, and inclusion are just words.
Yep.
They represent, they have definitions. But let me tell you something, as a professor with a doctorate in higher ed administration, in 1979, before the Reagan administration, the average student on a college campus, roughly 80% were white and were male. Today that number is down to 55%, with the largest increase in Hispanic and minority students in our public university. It is because of DEI programs at our universities why we can say everybody in the state of Kansas, everybody in the country has the right to learn and develop their knowledge so they can pursue the quality of life that they want to choose. This is about censorship that the supermajority is about. This is about control. This is about extortion. And if you sit there and you tell us something different, Speaker Hawkins, President Masterson, you're not listening.
Nope.
You're lying.
Yep.
If you line up 10 college graduates in front of us right now, in 6 years, 6 of them will be in another state. It's called a brain drain. We have the worst brain drain in the country. And when we brought this issue up, and mind you, we understand, we can read the room, so we're trying to make a difference with the cards we're dealt with. But when we brought this up, Representative Tarwater got to the mic and said at the well, shoot, if 60% are leaving, why should we even encourage them to go to college?
No!
We don't build an economy without an educated workforce. You do not have to go on to college, but if your knowledge stops at high school, you will have a harder time living the quality of life you deserve. We as Kansans and our government should support education, not from K-12, or not from just college, but from the beginning to the end of a person's life. What is the other option? Just watching our YouTube videos and making up facts? Well, that sounds like what the Republicans like to do. So on the bottom line, here's where I leave you. What can we do? And you've heard it before. We need to organize. We need to stop this backbiting. We can't just keep pointing fingers at each other and saying this person didn't do what they're supposed to do. Get it out. I'm always up for word vomiting, as I tell my students. Get it out. But once you've said what's the problem and you identify why, we need to come together and unite and organize. how we are going to fix it, because we can fix this. We need to fight to protect public education. Every student in Kansas should get an education, and that starts with supporting public education and only funding special education. We need to fight to have free press return to the Capitol. They are kicking out your journalists, those that want to report the transparency. They won't let you in there. We want to fight for every Kansan, for every vote, for voice, no matter what side you're on. That's what we should be about. We need a vote. Folks, this is your house. This is our state. We are just renters trying to make a difference. The one last thing I will tell you is I promise that I'm not going anywhere. I've been on the sideline way too long, and I'm going to continue to fight. My fight is strong. But I also will tell you I will fight to make sure that every politician remembers and that they know that we should stay out of your uterus. Let's go to work, Kansas. Thank you very much.
I'm going to switch up the order here just a little bit. I'd like to introduce one of my dear friends, the Representative Nikki McDonald, who represents the 49th District in Johnson County, Olathe, and Overland Park. Representative McDonald just finished her second session in the Kansas legislature. She and her husband Patrick have lived in Olathe for 22 years and are raising their two high school-aged sons who attend Olathe public schools. Nikki is a former teacher and community organizer who cares deeply about children's issues and education. Please welcome Representative Nikki McDonald.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the invitation, and I really appreciate all of you sticking with us today and hearing us out. I'm Nikki McDonald from Olathe, and I am known for coming right out and saying the things that need to be said. To that end, I think it's time that we point out Republican elected officials have made a habit of not honoring the commitments that have been made to our children. Let's remember, Kansas lawmakers refused to constitutionally fund our schools. In fact, it took nearly 15 years of lawsuits to force them to do right by our kids. Tax breaks for the wealthy were more important to Republicans than the education and the future of our kids. Even now, year after year, Republicans shortchange our students when it comes to funding special education costs. The law that they wrote requires the state to foot the bill for at least 92% of the cost of educating our students with special needs. Yet, year after year, they fail to do it. Because the Republicans are not honoring their commitment to pay these special education expenses, our Kansas school districts must pull money from their general budgets to plug that hole year after year. So instead of lowering class sizes or giving any pay raises to teachers, local districts must use that general fund money to make up for the Kansas legislature failing to pay their share of special ed costs. Did you know that in the United States, about 21% of adults, or about 43 million people, have low literacy skills? Children who cannot read become adults who cannot read. The Kansas legislature passed a bill just last year called the Blueprint for Literacy, which incorporates the most modern and efficient approach to teaching literacy skills. Ambitious goals were set, ensuring that 90% of Kansas students in grades 3 through 8 will be reading at grade level by 2033. This was to be accomplished by training 100% of our elementary teachers in the science of reading and structured literacy by 2030. The Blueprint for Literacy is one of the largest workforce development initiatives the state of Kansas has ever undertaken. Lawmakers committed to allocating $10 million per year for 5 years to achieve our goals. Yet the budget we passed this year has $0 allocated towards the Blueprint for Literacy or other initiatives for literacy development. Republicans claim to prioritize our children and their education. However, their actions tell another story. Now, because Republican politicians refuse to honor their commitments, our children's futures are being derailed, and those responsible need to answer for it. It is up to you and me to hold them accountable. And it's not just Republicans on the state level who are refusing to honor their commitments to our students and our teachers. It's happening on the national level too. Under the leadership of President Trump and his appointee, U.S. Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, the Department of Education just cut $22.6 million in federal funding for Kansas Department of Education last week. Funding that was already congressionally approved, already earmarked, and already dedicated by the Kansas State Board of Education to train our Kansas educators in the science of reading and structured literacy. This funding was the lifeline for catching up our students, teaching them to read, and helping them regain the ground that they lost during the pandemic. But now, effective immediately, those funds have been pulled, and with it, a promise to our children has been broken. It is just the latest example of deprioritizing our students. The defunding of these literacy initiatives by the Republican Kansas legislature, coupled with the United States Secretary of Education's decisions, are a huge disappointment. But you know what's more disappointing? The silent approval from many Republican leaders. It's just that, approval. So to those leaders, to the Kansas GOP leadership, to Linda McMahon and to Donald Trump himself, to every Republican who has allowed this to happen, we need to tell them, shame on you. Shame on those who are standing idly by, allowing the education of our children to be continuously deprioritized, defunded, and dismantled. They are shortchanging our students so that wealthy Americans can get more tax breaks, so the rich can get richer. These Republicans finance their greed with the future of our children. Now, Republican leaders are running the show here at the Capitol and in Congress, and there's a lack of political courage when it comes to any meaningful pushback on leadership from within the Republican Party. But I have a prediction. There will be a reckoning at the ballot box. What do you say? Now, outrage is a good start, but it is not enough. We must all move to action. We must all pull up our sleeves and put in the work, because tomorrow's leaders are here today. Don't wait for others to come to our rescue. We're going to have to rescue ourselves by volunteering for candidates who share our values, by donating generously to the people who run, by running for office ourselves. I will tell you from experience that winning campaigns is not rocket science, but it is hard work. Kansans aren't afraid of hard work, are we? No! Now you may be saying, Nikki, I'm really worried about all the things Trump is doing, and I'm worried too. I'm not saying you should not pay attention to federal politics, but we must focus on state and local politics as well, because that's what impacts our day-to-day lives in a more immediate way. Listen to me say this. Change will not come from the top. It will begin with grassroots and local efforts. National politics may be sexy to talk about, but state and local politics are where you can personally make a huge impact. So don't get distracted by the shiny national news. There are local elections this year. In Kansas, we have elections every August and every November. Do not miss an election. Do you know who's running for your local school board this fall? I represent Olathe and Blue Valley school districts. They each have 3 seats up on the ballot this year. And you know what? Those Republicans are already spending money on school board elections. You know why? They want to cut off our resistance at the knees. So my assignment for you is this. Go to your county election website. Look up who's running for your local school board. Better yet, call or email your local school board members and ask them who is on the ballot this year. Ask what you could do to help candidates who share your values. Donate money to their campaigns and volunteer. And while you're looking that up, yes, I want you to check and see who's running for your city council seats. Did you know that Chris Kobach got his start on the Overland Park City Council? Look at how that worked out for us. Pay attention, people. We don't need to wait until next year's elections to make an impact in our communities. The time for action is right now. Who's ready to take action? Woo! McDonald, and I am proud to be here representing Southern Olathe and Overland Park, saying all the things that need to be said, speaking truth to power. May we all remain undaunted as we unite to pull up our sleeves and put in the hard work, speaking to one voter at a time, ushering in a new era in our communities, in Kansas, and in the United States. May we make our children proud.
So as you beginning to understand, I have the great honor of serving with some superb people in this house, and they drill down every day on issues and the committee work that they do. And a lot of it seems like a lot of fine detail, but that's exactly what we're up here to do, to fight for bills and make them better and do the best we can do line by line and issue by issue. Another one of those who belongs to this team is Alexis Simmons. Representative Simmons represents the 58th district here in Topeka. She joined the Kansas legislature in 2025 and is already a ranking minority member of the Legislative Modernization Committee, and in addition sits on the Election Committee and Welfare Reform Committee and is an outspoken advocate for Kansans. Alexis is a graduate of Washburn University and American University's School of Public Affairs. In her previous life, she was Director of Communications for Kansas House Democrats and helped train women who were running for political office. Please help me welcome Alexis Simmons.
Thanks, y'all. I gotta say, we have a lot of fun in the house. So even when we get our teeth kicked in, it's good to go back and hang out with the gang. I don't know where he went. Hard to lose him. Where's our man, Matt Kleinman? Big Red, did you leave? Well, Matt Kleinman was here, and he ran for Congress. And let me tell you, he shows up to everything. So if you are inspired, be inspired by people like Matt Kleinman, who showed up, fought hard, gave us someone to vote for. All right, now, every day when I walk into the Capitol, I see a quote from Abraham Lincoln. It says, "Allow all the governed an equal voice in the government, and that only is self-government." And let me tell you, that keeps me going. I'm so glad to be here today. It feels like we're calling out from under an avalanche. But you know what? The sun is out. We are out from the snow and we can see the sun. How many of y'all came when it was negative? When it was negative in the winter? Who showed up when it was loud? The rain was so loud we could not hear each other giving our speeches. And we still showed up and we still said, you cannot make us shut up. And that is what they want to do. I'm going to talk to you about free speech, right? I don't know about y'all, I've been thinking about the students that are being taken out of their dorm rooms by the Trump administration for speaking truth to power. And I think all of us need to be paying attention to that. Because it's not only scary for them, what's it say they can do to us, huh? I'm not okay with that, you should not be either. I learned in the Kansas House this year that the leadership, the Republican leadership, is a bunch of snowflakes. And I learned that when I found out they didn't like that I call their legislation asinine. You know what that means? It means stupid and foolish. They said we're not allowed to use that word in the Kansas House. You know what? I think that's a pretty asinine rule. And as I've been sitting up here listening to all these wonderful speakers, it feels like I'm looking out at a field of wildflowers. You know why? Because they are hardy and they are determined and they come back again and again and again and they blossom when that avalanche snow melts and the sun comes out. And that's what I'm feeling today. I'm feeling like the legislative session is over. We have all the time in the world to speak truth to power. I also read recently a quote from Governor Janet Mills of Maine. Maybe y'all have read this. She said, "I have spent the better part of my career listening to loud men talk tough to disguise their weaknesses." Right. And if that is not the most applicable thing I have read this year, I don't know what is. Whether it's in our federal government or if it's here in the Kansas House and the Kansas Senate, we have a bunch of loud men who think they're going to talk over all of us. And I'm not talking about just the women. I'm talking about our allies. I'm talking about everybody in the state of Kansas whose rights they are trying to take away. So, you might be thinking, what do we do next? Okay, we got the time, we got the energy, we got the sunshine. you gotta vote. And when you show up to vote, you gotta make sure you bring a friend, or two, or three. And when you vote, don't vote just the top of the ticket. Vote all the way down the ballot. Because do you know how many races in the state of Kansas are lost by double digits? Too many. Senator Sykes knows. A dear friend of mine, Jeff Pittman from Leavenworth, a Democrat senator, he lost his race by 31 votes. 31 votes. Think about that. That's someone's car breaking down. The babysitter fell through. That's horrible. So we got to make up for that. We have to bring our people. We have to vote all the way down the ballot. People don't talk about state government, but you're here and you're going to do it. You're going to use that right to free speech, and you're going to leave here and you're going to tell people over dinner, you're going to call your friends, you're going to post it on social media, and you're going to say, we got to stay mad. We got to show up. And then you're going to subscribe to your local newspaper. And then you're going to chant with me, fire the liars, all of them. Get them the hell out, okay? So, fire the liars. Fire the liars. We got this, y'all. I'm so glad the sun is shining. I'm so glad to be here with you. Let's go kick some ass at the polls, right? Thank you so much.
Thank you all for coming. You are wonderful. Take that dedication out into the streets and out into the hallways and byways of Kansas, and let's make a difference in 2026 and long before. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. The Easter egg hunt is over, so if we have a coalition of people that would like to march around the Capitol with their signs, I will join you. Let's go get them.
You got information about this group?
I think that's
This is information.
what